Villagers were first added to Minecraft almost 13 years ago and have since become a core part of the game. But in the last few years, their power has skyrocketed, so much so that even Mojang themselves have admitted they are overpowered and are experimenting with changes in an experimental Minecraft snapshot. Community opinion is quite divided on the matter. Should you be able to get diamond armor without doing any mining? Should you be able to get infinite emeralds with little effort? Should you be able to get any enchantment you want by placing and breaking one block over and over? And are villagers ruining Minecraft and making the game too easy? While villagers were first added to Minecraft back in 1.0.0 in late 2011, they wouldn't actually do anything until Minecraft 1.3.1, which came out in mid-2012, where trading was first added to the game. At the time, villagers were seen as more of a novelty rather than a useful tool. The game was not as well understood yet, there weren't as advanced farms, players generally progressed through a world a lot slower, and certain resources like emeralds were made rarer because enchantments like fortune were harder to obtain, as well as a lack of emerald farms. The trades players would get at the time were also much more random. Nowadays, certain villager professions will unlock certain trades at certain tiers, but back in 1.3.1, trade orders were randomized, and as such, the trades you would unlock were a lot more random. A lot of the villagers' trades were not that useful, nor worth the effort to try to unlock, and as such, many players, as we can see from old forum posts, either didn't bother with them due to the randomness, or just chalked it up to being mostly luck-based and pointless. Fast forwards 2 years to 1.8, and villagers have been improved. It's easier to see their profession, the trades you unlock are now significantly less random, and in general, the trades were improved upon and more useful. This is the system that for the most part would ultimately last all the way up until 1.14, where the big Village and Pillage update changed everything. So, let's talk about it. As the years progressed and the game advanced, villagers became more and more valuable. But first, this video is sponsored by NameHero server hosting, namehero.com/TheMisterEpic. How many of you have tried to run a Minecraft server for you and some friends, or maybe even a small public server, and been frustrated at how annoying it is to set up all the plugins, server software, and settings? It's all such a chore. Well, NameHero's Minecraft server hosting will be perfect for you then, as when you buy the server, you can already choose pre-configured builds, then browse any mods or plugins you want and install them with just one click, even if they are rather questionable. And if you have any issues at all, their 24/7 support on Discord, live chat, phone, or tickets will be there to help. By the way, their game panel and console is really well done. It actually looks almost identical to my own public Minecraft servers, which you don't see often. As you can see on the screen here, NameHero's Minecraft servers are also generally on the higher end specs-wise when it comes to Minecraft server hosting, so you know you are getting your money's worth. You can even switch what game your server uses at will. Check out their annual and semi-annual plans for discounts with my link here. Villagers could now be used in farms that generated thousands of iron automatically every hour. They could even harvest and pick up crops, allowing for the creation of completely automatic crop farms. But most importantly, in 1.9, mending was added, a must-have enchantment that could only be obtained by finding a mending book in a structure, fishing, or through trading with a librarian villager. If you wanted mending on all your tools and armor, that meant a villager which would trade it to you was the only way to reliably and renewably get it. Villagers were no longer a novelty, they were a useful, essential, and even must-have tool to unlock certain game mechanics, and were also the best way to get emeralds and other certain items. But it wasn't easy. We'll use mending, the most sought-after villager trade, as our example. In 1.13, there were 13 different kinds of villagers, with only 1 or 2 librarians generally spawning in a village. And remember, back then you had no control over what profession a villager would be and could not change their trades. Whatever profession and trades a villager spawned with would be the profession and trades they would have for life. A librarian villager always spawned with 1 enchanted book trade unlocked. There were 30 enchantments you could get in 1.13, meaning 30 types of enchanted book trades which a librarian villager could spawn with. For simplicity's sake, we'll say that every village will spawn with 1 librarian. That means every village you find has a 3.33% chance to contain a librarian villager who trades mending. pretty unreliable. You'd need to visit so many villages to find a mending villager, and even then if you eventually did find one, it would likely be thousands or tens of thousands of blocks away in the middle of nowhere. So the best strategy was to try to breed a mending villager yourself. The chances of breeding a villager which was not only a librarian, because remember you couldn't choose or control his profession, but also traded mending, was about 0.26% or roughly 1 in 400. Not great odds, almost as bad as the number of you who aren't subscribed to my channel. No pressure, of course. In fact, I remember back in 2018 when I played on a 1.13 SMP with some friends that it took us months before a friend out exploring found a villager that traded mending, which was 20,000 blocks away. Because we had been trying for so long to get one through breeding and still had not yet, we all immediately dropped what we were doing, flew to him, brought the villager to the nether, minecutted him up to the nether roof, used the dragon egg bedrock breaking exploit to break bedrock and open a hole to the nether roof, and then boated him thousands of blocks in the nether back to our bases. Wow, that was a mouthful. It wasn't until about a month later that we finally managed to breed a mending villager in our villager breeders. After playing that server for about a year, those two mending villagers were the only ones we ever got. Similar stories were present on other SMPs from the time too. You might remember Hermitcraft Season 6 where Impulse SV happened to get a mending villager early, and every hermit was regularly giving him dozens of diamonds to use it because they were so hard to come across. Now look, I'm sure there's faster methods and better villager breeders we could have used, and of course many villager breeders were automatic, meaning you could just check on them every so often, but the point still stands that it took a notable time investment to get the trades you wanted from a villager. The same was true for basically every other high level Minecraft enchantment. You'd have to be rather lucky to get it, or seriously invest some time into grinding to get a villager which traded it. It was a tough and long process. And of course, the same principle also applied for other villager professions and other desirable trades. Because you couldn't control the profession the villager would be, nor its trades, it meant that if you wanted a specific trade, you would have to do a bit of work to get it. But once you had that villager and thus had that trade you wanted, or mending for life, it was extremely satisfying and rewarding. 1.14, the Village and Pillage update released in early 2019, and things would all change. Villagers' professions were now tied to a specific job site block. That meant if you hadn't traded with a villager yet, you could break that block and change their profession. Pretty funny if you think about it. More specifically though, this meant you could now not only control the villager's profession, but also its trades, as you could break and place down a villager's job block over and over until you got the trade you wanted. This is called trade or job resetting, and it's not a fun process whatsoever, being very repetitive and boring, but it's an extremely efficient and effective way of getting the trades you want, like mending. Rather than spending hours breeding villagers or searching the wild, you could now spend 5 to 10 minutes to get mending or any enchanted book and trade you wanted. Despite being significantly easier to get mending now, the process of getting it was so much less fun. I told you about how me and my friends spent a considerable amount of time to get mending. Well, that was actually relatively fun compared to the considerable amount of time I spent building a trading hall, which had all the max enchanted books in 1.14. This is effectively what it looked like for hours on end. There is no fun in villager resetting. It's super unenjoyable and is not something that requires skill nor challenge, but it's something which has a lot of value and in some ways is essential to progress in a Minecraft world. It's easy and boring, but very powerful and necessary. In 1.14 and later versions, villagers now provided too much value compared to their new time investment, or rather lack thereof. Some people don't even bother with enchanting tables and just buy the enchantments they want from villagers now, or straight up buy the gear they want. I got a lot of comments about that on this video. And as I mentioned, while the system is really powerful and efficient, it's also just so boring and unenjoyable, nobody likes doing it. Outside of mending and enchanted books as well, villagers gained even more power from the ease at which you could now get emeralds through raid farms, or through another method which would really illustrate how busted villagers are, turning them into zombies. If you made a villager a zombie villager by getting it killed and thus converted by a zombie, then cured it and repeated the process another 1 or 2 more times, its trades got ludicrously cheap. In fact, you can even get it to the point where you can effectively get infinite emeralds by buying certain things like bookshelves, then trading the books back for more than you bought them for. The ability to get huge discounts was finally nerfed a bit in 1.20.2, so clearly after years, even Mojang acknowledged it wasn't meant to be that powerful. It's a relatively common complaint that the ease and power at which you can get certain goods through villager trading became too OP and too easy after 1.14. The fact that you can go from any run-of-the-mill crop like melons or any other easily obtainable items like like sticks to diamond armor with just 2 villagers has really streamlined a process of the game which should not be so easily streamlined. And hey, maybe Mojang actually agrees. Everything you've seen so far in this video has mostly been from a player's point of view, but last year in Minecraft 1.20.2, a villager trade rebalance experimental toggleable feature was added. Mojang explicitly mentioned here that they believed the librarian villager was too random and also too overpowered compared to other methods of gaining enchanted books. There you have it, even Mojang agrees that villagers in some part were too OP. In this experimental snapshot, librarian villagers now only offered specific enchanted books depending on the biome they came from. Furthermore, certain special enchanted books and higher level enchantments could only be obtained from a librarian villager's final trade. You couldn't just trade reset over and over. Now, if you wanted a mending villager, you needed to find a swamp librarian and unlock all of its trades first. But villagers don't generate in swamp biomes, meaning players need to go to those biomes and actually breed villagers there themselves to access those trades. This is very interesting. Clearly, Mojang wanted to add a level of difficulty to obtaining certain enchantments in librarians like mending again, but also didn't want it to be as randomly grindy as the pre-1.14 villager breeding trade lottery system. There were also other changes too. For example, buying diamond armor also now required a small amount of diamonds, so you couldn't just go from rags to riches with 2 villagers like you could before. Clearly, Mojang thought that skipping an entire aspect of Minecraft progression, that being mining to find diamonds, was also too powerful and not how the game should be. The experimental villager changes have been largely untouched for a year now and are still not enabled in the game by default as of yet. But if anything, it shows that Mojang is clearly aware of the overpowered nature of villagers and does seem to want to make changes to them. Now, these experimental changes weren't exactly widely positively received by the community for some very fair reasons, so it's likely more changes will be put in place before such a system ever makes it into the game. But I'd argue the days of the overpowered villagers are numbered. Check out NameHero with my link below, be sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching.